Gamers Ledge presents.
No, just don't let it go. I started the fight, but now I'm losing. So will I fall again? I'm scared of heights, yet it was me who ran away.
Talking them down from the ledge. With your hosts, Dave, Matt, and Mark. Here's how it works. Every week, a new assertion. The others have to try to talk them down from the ledge. This week, warning, spoilers will be discussed in this show. Greetings and salutations. Welcome to another episode of Talking Them Down for the Ledge. This week, our topic, massive continuities in comics, print, or games. Are they a good or bad thing? Tackling the topic of them being fantastically awesome is the principal, Matt. And arguing against will be myself, Mark, and Dave, the Lego Negotiator, as he's been renamed.
Nice.
The rules are such. Matt will start with a 5-minute brief of why continuities are awesome. Then, Dave and I will each get a 5-minute rebuttal, followed by a 5-minute question and answer round in which Matt must fend for his life. And assuming he makes it through that, he will get the last word with a 2-minute summation of whether or not he has changed his mind after the facts have been presented to him, who had the best argument of the day, and whether or not we talked him down from the ledge. Matt!
So far, you guys are 0 for 2, so... I die a lot.
He actually is 0 for 2. All right.
He's unshakable.
Or stubborn.
Irish German, man.
All right, Matt, are you ready for your 5 minutes?
I am ready.
The timer goes one of these random places because I'm somewhere different every week. I found that
nice.
Found out that last podcast. All right, your 5 minutes begins now.
Sprawling continuities. First example I would like to go into, and just to quick summarize, we're talking about when either a print, video game, video medium has a continuity that spans a larger than the object itself. So the Marvel Cinematic Universe is where you have several properties all fitting together into a larger continuity, a TV property even, or video games where the Arkham games, fit together, or, if there were another game series that fit into that even larger, kind of that kind of concept. And I enjoy it. The concept of having an overarching continuity like we've seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is something that's never really taken hold in the video medium before. I mean, even having shows that crossed over continuity were pretty rare. I mean, you had the Star Trek series, which generally ran independently. There was a little crossover between some of the shows. But they had a larger continuity that they fit into, but generally they were independent events. There was no or very little interconnectivity between them. You occasionally saw the Enterprise at Deep Space Nine. Some of the characters in Voyager, were seen from previous in series. But for the most part, especially in movies, you might have a series couple, 3 movies, but it's all the same characters, it's all the same plots, or even worse yet, it's none of the same characters. Speed 2, and the plot sucked. But Marvel really has kind of nailed it with this, and I enjoy it. I like being able to go into a universe, knowing what's going on, knowing the interactivity, knowing that there could be implications beyond the film that I'm watching. Not only that, there's a TV series, now 2, maybe 3, where the implications can also be felt. And I love that unity it brings to it. You don't have to learn everything from scratch. You don't have to worry about if it's this version of Coulson or that version of Coulson or this version of Hulk or that version of Hulk. It's like, not like we're going to end up with like 4 cyborgs in the DC side. There's one Coulson, one Hulk, one Hawkeye, and it's the same person anywhere you go. So anytime that person is referenced or seen, you already have a connection to that. You don't have to go through all the exposition. Now, someone jumping in the middle, it's a little rougher, admittedly, but overall, it's there. Comics, same thing. I love the fact of if you have one comic over here that is doing something, and then it has an impact on this one over here. Now, it can be done poorly. It has to be done well. I mean, that's the caveat there, right? I mean, Marvel can do it well for small channels of continuity, but the channels of continuity do not cross well. DC's a little better, and then there have been other other series that have been very, very good at it. And then there's something like Image, where for the most part, nothing touches anything else, and they're all just independent stories. All the mediums can work, but I appreciate it when, a character shows up from one book in another book, and there's some reference to the fact that they did X or Y, or it's like, if some character undergoes a massive change in their book and then they show up in another book without that massive change, that's very disruptive to me. It pulls you out of the experience. So how far am I?
You have time.
Okay.
No, you have like a minute left.
Okay. So overall, just the overall user experience is enhanced because you have a world in your head already that you're just stepping back into. You don't need to learn anything. You don't need to worry about whether or not this is this or that is that. You just step into the world. You know what's coming in, and it just that interconnectivity and continuity. It really, I guess it's kind of just using the same words to define the thing, but it's just enjoyable. It's less work. It's easier to enjoy and just jump into and go.
Very good. Dave and I flipped a coin before the show, and since the coin was double-headed coin and I called heads, I will go first. In my response, my 5 minutes goes up on the board and begins now. Here's the real skinny on continuity. It restricts freedom. It restricts choice.
Ooh.
And it restricts the ability for storytellers to tell the stories that they want. Former Marvel editor-in-chief Joe Quesada said it best when he said, and I am paraphrasing, "We want our writers to tell good stories, not to be beholden to 40 years of stories that came before them and have to remember and reference every time something has happened." In short, we don't want continuity to have to get in the way of telling a good story. The other issue I have with the point that Matt made was this is the first time that we've gotten continuity in a television and movie set of franchises working together. And I say that is complete and utter falsity. We have not yet seen true continuity between Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the movies. We have things that are shoehorned in. Oh, a Thor movie is coming out now, so we'll do an episode with a Thor artifact. Oh, Age of Ultron 2 is coming up, so we will engage the Theta protocols right before the movie comes out, then not be really referenced in the movies or see any of those characters, and then the following week, well, I'm glad we engaged those Theta protocols. And it's not continuity, it's shoehorning something in that they could have done better with those 3 minutes that they spent building up to that. Don't believe me? Watch the last Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for the season. The last minute and a half is better than anything they did in any of those tie-ins. So for me, continuity is nice, but it is not necessary. If you watch something like Lost had a continuity. And let me ask you this. How many of those story arcs that they introduced to preserve continuity did they actually follow up with ever at the end of the series? The answer is none, because they built themselves into such a corner that they had to go with these crazy things to work their way out and keep the show going because it was such a success. Plus, you had different writers coming in, and you lost inherently some of that knowledge from the writing group. So, I mean, yeah, I know, right? See?
Yeah.
So I really think that while it can be a good thing, it's almost never implemented correctly in terms of a movie or television universe. And even in comics, it can be rather restrictive. So I'd say that in this particular case, having a forced continuity is worse than having no continuity at all. Dave?
Here's my thing about continuity. If you kind of look in the history of things, like some of the greatest, I would say maybe story catalysts have come out of things not being in continuity. For example, probably one of the best seminal works that people can reference for something like this would be Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns. It completely blew the doors off Batman stories at that time, but the end result was it actually reshaped everything that was to come after that. And most people would argue for the better, even though his subsequent attempts to go back and revisit the character have been hilarious for the most part.
In a sad way.
Yeah. You still have to give him credit for the initial catalyst, which changed everything. If everything was stuck in continuity, we would have never seen that. And you would have a much different, probably, storyline of, like, say, Batman, who is a great fan favorite today, without that. So a lot of times I would argue that you kind of need those offshoot stories and the outside-of-the-box thinking in order to reinvigorate characters. It's not always... I understand a lot of people, like, I mean, I myself have been frustrated when I was, like, reading X-Men back in the day, and they kind of wrote themselves in the corners, and then all of a sudden, Siege Perilous, we start over. So that drove me nuts, and actually drove me out of comics for a while when they did another reboot, and, within, 5 years or something like that, where they did a complete reboot. That kind of drove me nuts. So I understand the frustration with that. But at the same time, losing out on those, creative genius, even if it's just a one-shot. Sometimes we get these, really cool, stories out of just, a one-shot idea that we'd otherwise never have. I don't think that's worth losing. Because in the end, I mean, do we really think that, sure, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as great as it is, admittedly, can that continue forever? No. It just can't. Actors are going to get old. Actors are going to need to be replaced. That's going to, kind of break the continuity. But at the same time, we're still going to want to see, in another, 15 years, we're going to want to see an Iron Man in the story. Because there's still going to be cool Iron Man stories to tell. And there's going to be, granted, it's going to be tough to replace them, but eventually there will be some actor that's going to nail the role and everything. I mean, it's like the Joker. We've had a couple actors playing the Joker in the animated and in movie form, and they can all have good takes on it. And again, just something with that, if we have to stick with continuity, for that, we don't get the different approaches to the characters that are all enjoyable. Like, most people would say Jack Nicholson's Joker was great. Heath Ledger's Joker was amazing. These are all good things. I'm looking forward to Jared Leto's take on it because supposedly, and look, the guy's got chops. The guy can sit there and exactly. He can sit there and pull off a cool role. So I want to see that. But if we're sticking to like continuity and everybody decides on one thing, like we wouldn't get Heath Ledger's crazy scarred up grin and that great story that went along with that. We just wouldn't have had that if they were sticking straight to the rules. So I don't know. I think we lose a lot if we adhere too closely to continuity. And I'm not sure if I'm willing to really let that go. I think that there should be more movies that are just like one-shots. You see it all the time in the DC Cinematic Universe. They take, random one-off books, like, say, New Frontiers, which was just kind of like a retelling of like an alternate retelling of the Justice League getting together and like kind of like a retro style to it. It ends up being a great movie. It was a neat comic book. There's no reason not to have that. It's a one shot. It exists off to the side and it's great. Why can't we have that in like the cinematic universe and everything? Why can't we have a one shot that's just some alternate telling of a character? There's so many great backstories that we can tap into, and people can develop new stories along with them. Why lose out on all that? Do I have too much time, or that should be about it? Did I hit the post?
That was not me.
So this begins our 5-minute question and answer session. Matt, 2-part question. Have you ever heard of Aunt May gaining Captain Universe's powers?
Yes.
Would that have ever existed if we had to tell everything in continuity?
Probably not.
Dave, do you have a question?
That was your 2-part?
That was my 2-part question.
I'm trying to think of a nice zinger.
No, I have another one if you need a moment.
Give me a moment. Yeah, go for another one.
Can you tell me, sir, as a comic book reader and aficionado of the medium, what the most eye-rolling word in the lexicon of verbiage for comic readers is?
Depends on whether you're a Spider-Man fan or not. If it's Spider-Man, it's clone. Otherwise, it's probably retcon.
You are correct, sir. Retcon is the word, yes. Retcon, you are also correct about clones, yes. Retcon is indeed the word that I was getting at, and do you know what that means?
I never can remember what the ret means. Con is for continuity.
Retroactive.
Retroactive continuity.
Basically, you change something after the fact, like how Iron Man's accident has taken place in 3 or 4 different time periods now.
So, in a world that lives by the framework in which you have laid out here, we would have to have minutes upon minutes every time they change an actor for Iron Man, or dedicated entire movies to pass the torch from Robert Downey Jr. to someone else just to keep the continuity in place. Or retcon it to the new actor.
It depends. If a new actor took over the same role and was presenting the same character, say James Bond-esque, you wouldn't need to spend any time introducing the new character, because it's not a new character. It's just the part of Iron Man will now be played by Mark Bodonick.
Did you just call me an alcoholic womanizer?
With
billions of dollars?
With billions of dollars. A billionaire playboy philanthropist. So I that one to me, there's ways around that, right? There's ways to manage that. If you're going to say, okay, Iron Man is now no longer Tony Stark and it's his long lost kid that he never knew he had, Sammy Stark. You got to dedicate some time or probably an episode or whatever to taking something like that into account. Dave.
I don't know. I mean, other than what I already said, why would you want to lose out on those those
I,
cats.
you've already made your argument, so to save time, I can address this point.
Sure, yeah.
Despite the fact that I enjoy the continuity aspects of it, one of my favorite books of all time is What If.
That was going to be my next question. Damn it!
I love the what ifs. I love the one offs. I love those things. I'm not saying that continuity needs to go to the extent of excluding those things. Now, see, I'm kind of at a different, and this is probably my prejudice being a comic book fan and a movie fan. I see it much easier to do in the comic book universe because you automatically have the multiverse. So you can have a story that has,
What are you talking about? There is no multiverse for Marvel. There is no multiverse for DC. No, Convergence on DC side and Secret Wars on Marvel side. There's not going to be any multiverse anymore.
And
you will be trapped in your own little
continuity. Yes.
Why would they do? It boggles my mind.
We're getting off topic.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I think it's not off topic. They're doing it to collapse, in DC's case, 75 years worth of continuity of all these other universes and planets down to streamline it to make it accessible. And Marvel's doing it because now they have licenses over here and over there that they don't want to pay for, and they're trying to collapse it down to one continuity to say, here's Marvel.
Are we losing Batman of Zur-En-Ah? That's all I want to know.
There's good business reasons for why they're doing what they're doing, right? There is a reality to that there. Now, if they come out with a continuity out of these events and it's well done, I will appreciate that. Yes, I do.
It's probably going to happen too if his record shows anything. All right, Matt. The question and answer session is finished. You have 2 minutes to state whether or not you have changed your mind and what the best argument of the day was.
First, Mark, you ignorant slut. You intentionally left out the best crossover moment from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in the cinematic universe, which was Winter Soldier and the Rise of Hydra. That was brilliant. That was perfectly executed. Yes, there were two crappy ones. The other one was brilliantly executed. Dave, I'm sorry. I will pay you for the rights for that. I couldn't resist myself.
Totally missed that he did that. He did.
He just glanced right over that one.
Step right over that one.
And that's why I said, when well done, these things are great. Now, there's lots of examples of it not being well done, and I think they're still trying to figure it out. Right? I mean, there's political and personal, and movie directors are generally just a bit of a egomaniac kind of thing. So there's issues there with the creative mind and wanting to do what it wants to do and trying to fit into something larger. Dark Knight Returns is a great argument. It did reshape Batman, even though it wasn't really a continuity. It reshaped all of Batman. So yeah, I did that. Without that, we would still have goofy, campy Batman probably. I wrote down a couple of things. Sorry. Different approaches to the characters. That's definitely the best argument of the day, in my opinion, is things like The Dark Knight Returns, where you take a twist on a character that hasn't been done before, and it ends up working so well that it becomes a pivotal thing, even though it didn't really happen in their real life. And I don't necessarily want to eliminate that. Wow, that one's short. Okay. So anyway, while I still love what Marvel is doing with the cinematic universe and their TV universe, and I greatly appreciate what they're doing with the 3 DC shows, I'm still not convinced that all of them are in the same continuity, but whatever. Yeah, there it has to be limited. So yeah, I mean they can't be completely overarching. They can't sprawl so far that it eliminates the possibility of anything else. Wasn't really the position I was going in with to start with, but that was not caveated. So I'm not saying they're terrible. I'm saying I appreciate them and I like them where they're applicable and how when they can be done well, but not to the extent of sacrificing everything else.
So you're saying what?
I'm saying I conditionally am backing down on my position.
Never thought I'd see this day.
Well, I'm starting to think of like the thing that really kind of twisted me around is one of my favorite shows is Stargate SG-1, which completely breaks away from the continuity of the movie. I mean, it starts out as a sequel to the movie, but they eventually just completely break away. And if they would have had to have stuck with the movie continuity, it would not have ever been nearly as good as it was. So
I didn't even think of that one.
We will, of course, do our exit interviews after we do our housekeeping. Do follow us on Twitter at GamersLedge, Facebook.com/GamersLedge. Of course, do visit the website at GamersLedge.com, and you can see our publishing schedule. Currently is Mondays are Video Veg with Gamers Ledge. Tuesdays are Quick Bites. Wednesdays are Gamers Ledge Podcast. Thursdays are Talking Them Down from the Ledge right here. And then we do spoilercasts on Fridays where applicable. So thanks for joining us. Until next week, game on.
Game on.
The important thing here that we need to recognize is the American people have won. We finally got him to change his mind. Not sure what that has to do with the American people, but it feels good. Best part is you just need those creative catalysts in there, and you cannot deny that. So no matter what you do, no matter how much we enjoy that stuff, you need those paradigm-changing stories to pop up every once in a while to make everything work, no matter what.
Yeah, so I'm happy we got him to change his mind. But to be honest, I took this position just to screw with him. I actually totally think continuities are the most awesome thing since sliced bread, and that everything should use them because it's kind of crappy without it. But as he so definitely pointed out, I made sure to cherry pick my arguments to kind of structure it in a way that might lead him down that path. And he's gullible and he went. So there you go. I am totally happy with the outcome of this show.
Well, being a mostly German-Irish descent, it's incredibly hard for me to back down on anything. So, Dave's argument about the whole, pivotal character development happening in things outside of their standard continuity is really kind of what got me thinking about Stargate SG-1, got me thinking about some other stuff. And again, it wasn't necessarily my intent going in that everything would have to be in continuity, that there was no room for anything standalone. But that's kind of the way the position was stated. So I do have to admit there needs to be room for some creative freedom. There needs to be room for new ideas, especially in something like comic books that's going to go on for years and years and years and decades. So yeah, I feel okay about this. I didn't really want to back down, but there's a valid point there. So.
You